What will happen? But Pone doesn't think that's something that could happen. He's straight. Why would that happen? I cannot understand. How can you be so sure? They were ready to use all the strength they could, ignoring diplomatic issues just to capture him. So do you want to bet with me? Pone's lips spread into a smile that made the blonde man dumbfounded. As long as Tak Se-young felt annoyed with anyone, that person would get out of the match. So this game is over, there's no need to negotiate, there's no chance. The plane glided through the night sky. The blonde man continued to persuade his boss. But what if they successfully negotiate with him? How to use money and power like that? Those things may not be very feasible, but what about knowing that the Chinese leader gives them a piece of land, and then gives them autonomy over it? It's true to think, soil is something that the Chinese never lack, but instead of focusing on that, Pone suddenly snapped his fingers as if he thought of something interesting. Then Aunt Tak Se-young's family will be targeted by me for special protection. Please send an SOS signal to the people at Fort Brake so they can help a little. Talking about this, he was completely lost. He asked again, are you talking about the 82nd Air Force to protect a civilian family? So what? That crazy smile appeared on Pone's lips again. He raised his hand and chuckled. That's a good idea. We must make Se-young satisfied. Crazy like this, the blonde man couldn't help but stare speechlessly at his boss, who was muttering to himself, we must exhaust this plan until the end. The rain outside was pouring heavily. Du Zhang and his subordinates cried in the car, then went outside to soak their faces in the rainwater and cry. He promised himself and his deceased son, I will definitely avenge you. I will pay back little by little the pain of the terrible death you endured, and there will be no exceptions for those who watched my son die unjustly like that. I will make them pay for what they have done. After my son's funeral ended, the family of the president of Xinjiang Group immediately held a press conference. Not only his son, because Zhang also called on all parents whose children were killed by Tak Se-young to frame him for the tragic assassination. These families criticized the government for being incompetent and unable to protect its people. And sure enough, in just a few days, the number of dead victims increased very quickly, not only those that Se-young intentionally killed from the beginning, but also many other families who lost loved ones during Se-young's process. Looking for a target to kill, thousands of police and soldiers died, causing public opinion to begin to reverse. People who once viewed Se-young as a hero and honored him in various ways began to see Se-young from a perspective no different from a terrorist who disregards the law and order of life. Everywhere in the forums, people talk about Se-young having mental problems, that's why he killed so many people. In the end, people see him as an evil criminal who threatens safety of the whole country and its citizens. So he became the common enemy of the whole country, but the problem is that Se-young doesn't play on social networks. He doesn't read newspapers or watch news. In short, he doesn't know that he has become a thorn in his side. Eyes of everyone in the land of kimchi. Security video at the airport recorded the scene of Se-young cutting the president's daughter in half and brought it to him, who was sitting behind his desk trembling and calling Se-young's name. Sung Chul cried for a long day, pitying his poor daughter. Then, like many other fathers, he promised himself that he would definitely take revenge for his daughter. Please wait for me in heaven, then Dad will avenge you. He sat crying alone like that in the president's office for an entire day, until there was a soft knock on the door before he wiped his tears and heard the person outside say in a low voice, I'm here. Standing up to become president again, Sung Chul allowed the other person to enter and immediately heard a sympathetic voice. He looked so haggard, tears still streaming down his face. Sung Chul wants Mr. Park Sang-krung, director of the National Intelligence Agency, to go to work. Pointing at a white-haired and bearded man, Mr. Park introduced. I will get to the point. This is the person who will give you the right advice at this time. The old man drummed his hands on a stick, bowed to the president, and introduced himself as Jang Yoen-jong. When sitting down, according to Mr. Park's introduction, Mr. Jang was once a training instructor, one of the people who laid the foundation for this country until his retirement as Minister of National Defense. So there's a way, right? Sung Chul wanted to ask right away. I want to kill that bastard. Sang-krung was silent for a moment, then opened his mouth to confirm that it was completely possible. making Sung Chul unable to stop his trembling hands on the chair. He did not expect to hear such a firm affirmation, so he immediately asked, "What do you need me for?" His deep eyes glanced at the president and frankly said, "First we need to arrest Jung Da-hun, the only survivor." That's not the way to catch Tak Se-young, the president seemed to want to ask, but received a knowing look from the old man. While the crowd was discussing in the president's room, heavy objects were thrown into a corner of the city, making a loud noise and screaming loudly. Thick columns of black smoke rose from that place and the army took aim. Se-young looked visibly worried. From the command post, all the legions quickly retreated, and that's when Se-young's huge figure appeared right before their eyes. As they breathed a sigh of relief, they saw the young man in front of them roaring, the leader of the group. The other side suddenly changed their mind and told them not to retreat, making the soldiers not know what to do. What crazy guy is talking nonsense, telling them what to do, but if they don't retreat, what can they do with this demon? While not knowing where the solution lies, suddenly there is a foot. Calmly walked over talk frankly with Se-young. "This is why you need experience in sports competitions, because I will beat you to a pulp, not just being big and strong can do anything." "Where are you, kid?" An army soldier already wearing armor the same size as Se-young was smiling and repeating to him, "The important thing is that skill. I am a former world boxing champion. Avoiding 3 blows from it's just as easy as candy for you." Seeing that the kid in front of him didn't say anything, I thought he was scared. The big guy started to take a defensive stance, bouncing back and forth in challenge. "Come in here and try. This will be a fight between the two of us. Please." Who would have thought that before he could finish his sentence, a blow straight to his face made him distort his beak immediately, and then his whole body flew backwards with just a single blow from Se-young. The whole group of soldiers looked at that person, flew up to the second floor of the building and plunged straight into it. Smoke billowing out but remained silent, not daring to move even an inch. The sound of the walkie-talkie at this time speak clearly, set up a siege, and immediately report back to Tak Se-young. Once you see the target, absolutely do not attack him. See? Waiting for orders and a few more seconds might have escaped being punched. The soldiers looked at the guy who had just been hit on the ground, then looked at Se-young, knowing not to anger him anymore. Suddenly the young man raised his head and saw 4 helicopters on the building that had just taken off from the roof. He simply looked up like that and smelled Da-hun sitting huddled and trembling there. In any of them, it was as if they knew Se-young was watching. Immediately all 4 cars split into 4 different directions and ran away. The way they despised him like that made Se-young mad. Gritting his teeth, lowering his center of gravity, he shot his body up to the building in front of him to gain momentum, then jumped everywhere, causing the ground below to rumble like there was an earthquake, causing many more earthquakes. Reinforced concrete fell on the soldiers' heads. Everyone did not dare to say a word. Se-young seemed mad, gritted his teeth, and cursed. "Just keep running, wherever you run, or wherever you hide, I will find you and kill you." From the moment Se-young rushed to Da-hun's building and made a noise in the whole area, Shi Yian and the others did not intervene at all. At that time, she was looking at the video with Se-young cutting Jang's body in half. So young. I don't know if she felt relieved or not when this girl finally died, but Shi Yian really wanted to kill them herself. Her mumbling made him stare for a while but didn't say anything more. Suddenly he felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. He picked it up to report to the other party. "Yes, this is Sergeant Kong Yun." That side didn't bother to say any greetings but instead gave orders, leaving a squad to watch, and the remaining Tak Se-young retreated. He didn't understand anything and asked back, "Why are you still giving orders like this?" "Because Tak Se-young has already appeared here and is done going crazy." The other end of the line calmly replied, "The spies acting in Seoul right now are only targeting Se-young, plus the scoundrels are loitering around to track down Se-young, without paying attention to the location. Any point or decision." He agreed with that person about retreating to the base but said he would stay here, and Shi Yian would be escorted back. The girl turned her head to look at the spy who was talking but could not hear the instructions on the other end of the line. "Shi Yian is a very important child for us. This child plays a very important role in removing the puppet government in front of us. So let's just say frankly that I have to escort the child home, and then go around beating around the bush. The other person continued to complain that until Shi-Yian returned safely, our top priority plan was her safety. You must definitely report her every move, and you must also know that you must not leave her without orders. He replied yes, then rolled his eyes and looked at the girl who had become so dirty, all because of the information he was brought back at this time. There's no way. Kong Yun pretended he had no other solution. Please don't ask if it's okay to talk to me. The government plane made a clicking sound as it reached a remote mountain area with few people below. It landed on the ground, causing dust to fly, and then there were silhouettes of 3 people getting down and going straight to their destination. The zip car had been waiting for a long time. The president was the last one to leave, asking where we were going and what the hell was going on here. Pointing behind a dense tree, Yian Zhang said there was a military base here. He didn't understand anything. Why did he have to show him the military base? But thought it was a stupid question, so Sung Chul didn't say anything and waited for the silver-haired man to continue explaining. The place we are heading to is not the military base but down there. Following his direction, the group of people sitting on the zip car entered a small door, designed to be difficult to see below the mountain. Unexpectedly, there was a long and deep concrete road inside. Smoke, only seeing a pile of light at the end of the road. The zip car brought with it a lot of questions from Sung Chul, so he asked, Director Park, where are we going? Why is there a tunnel underneath the military base? He said, we will get there soon and I will explain everything in detail, meaning that no one wants to tell this president where he is going and what he is doing. He was bewildered but had to accept. When he saw the scene at the end of the tunnel, he was surprised to realize that it was a door designed with bulletproof and fireproof material, and clearly behind it was a completely built facility. So when that door opened to let the zip car in, his head was full of questions. As a president, he didn't even know what this place contained. Why couldn't he hide his horror in the sunlight? When the horizontal door opened, inside there were dozens of people walking back and forth with their busy work. Setting foot on the platform, the president still did not believe that this place could be so big and majestic. Position. At this point, Yian Zhang began to introduce, opening with an extremely sensational sentence, "This is where we will arrest Tak Se-young. Just now, I heard the old man say we could stop that bastard, but I didn't believe it. Now that I'm there, the president feels that everything is possible, so he gritted his teeth and turned around to shout. In everyone's faces, what the hell are you planning on doing here? If Tak Se-young was really here, that brat would easily destroy this place. What kind of person would be imprisoned in this place even if a missile was aimed at them? Yet that old man Yian Zhang continued to say, we have a place where Tak Se-young's strength can be significantly reduced. The president doesn't believe it. In his heart he cursed that it was all nonsense. But Sung Chul had to completely change his attitude when the old man in front of him said, it's not a place, it's a method that has been tested before. But what kind of test is that? The more I talk, the more confused I get. The old man's voice continued to ring out, in terms of speed, strength, or moonwalking senses, that teenager's body has far exceeded human limits. But someone similar to Tak Se-young appeared before, so he confidently said this had been tested before. But when was that? When did the dinosaurs fight against America? Who would have thought that Yian Zhang said it was only 30 years ago, making the president angry and cursing, stop talking nonsense. It was 30 years ago. Why does no one know? Everyone in this country is scared to death when they see Tak Se-young appear. But have I never heard of someone similar to him appearing? Yian Zhang remained calm, explaining that at that time, the public was very easily persuaded, not like today. At that time, it was not as easy to access information as it is now, because social networks are more developed now than back then. Even so, the unheard of story of such a superhero appearing is only in fiction. Tapping his stick on the ground, Yian Zhang said in short, something had been done so the residents would remember it differently. When passing by Sung Chul, he whispered, actually, that's someone you know. It's no different from a horror story, look at that white hair. Sung Chul was really three-pointed until he said a code name called Maruchi. The president finally showed a look of confidence and shock on his face. The information he had just received was too terrible. He turned away, unexpectedly bumping into Director Park's crooked smile in front of him, making the president feel more and more chilled. So is this old man telling the truth? Closing again for the cowardly president to hear. That person really existed, Park Sang-krung added. At that time Maruchi was the best person in the Korean intelligence agency. Does that mean that person worked for the country? Sung Chul wanted to ask right away. Where is that person now and how is he? Immediately received a short answer from Yeon-jong. He's dead, as if he was deliberately adding to the crisis in the president's eyes. The old man repeated, Maruchi no longer exists in this world. As soon as he heard that Maruchi had died, Sung Chul made another angry statement. If you worked for the National Intelligence Agency, why were you eliminated? Seeing old man Yeon-jong walking in front as if not bothering to speak, the president understood that that person was not eliminated, but if a person with such terrible strength was not eliminated, why did he say he was dead? Yeon-jong had to go back and correct. To be more precise, the group responsible for that plan was not the government, but the North Korean government that captured Maruchi. Why are the North Koreans involved here? That day, the campaign that single-handedly destroyed 3 North Korean armies brought fame to Maruchi, because he alone was able to take down all of them without any effort. Need help from anyone. But there's nothing strange about that. Sung Chul doesn't understand what's so terrible about that. Tak Se-young can also do it now. Yeon-jong knew he thought so he glanced back and said it correctly. At that time Maruchi was younger than Tak Se-young is now. The more he heard, the more contradictory it became to the point where he was no longer angry. Sung Chul just wanted to know that such a strong person was captured and killed so simply. When he looked up, he saw Yeon-jong in front of a wall covered with black metal panels. He placed his hand on it while explaining. He was captured but we couldn't kill him. So what? What is the elimination method, he said. Yeon-jong told him, because they only wanted to capture Maruchi, but if they intended to kill him from the beginning, it would be difficult to get out of this place. So why did he die in the end? Now Yeon-jong started talking. He died while eliminating a special force, but who would believe someone like that would die over such a small problem? Not getting to the main point, Yeon-jong said that at that time he was on a mission to eliminate Japanese submariners, and was unable to escape from the submarine that sank into the deep sea. While the elderly were rushing to the tunnel under the military zone in the capital Seoul, people were scurrying to find a way to escape following the instructions of the police, because Se-young was alone walking on the street. To find that damn Yoon Da-han, his face is so gloomy, how come everyone doesn't run away? While looking around to find that dog, Se-young's eyes suddenly fell on an extremely familiar place and brought back many old memories, which was Nunguang Middle School. Suddenly ignoring that Da-han guy, Se-young jumped out of the place he was standing, soared high into the sky and landed straight on one foot on a tall building nearby. Not destroying what he had just touched, but just lightly placing his fingers on it, Se-young was standing on the roof of Nunguang Middle School. From here he sank into old memories when he told the teacher about being ostracized. They nonchalantly replied, "What did you mean by that? Even in the teacher's time, everyone did that all the time. They're all adults." In short, no matter how much they say, teachers have a lot of things to worry about, so they don't worry about the little things their students are having. Then he buried his middle school days behind the school's scrapyard, being punched and kicked by bullies and cursing him for being stupid all the time. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became when the kids who didn't participate kept pointing out that Tak Se-young is the ostracized guy. If I got caught in that situation I would die. Well, no one is coming to help? No one wants to come help, because there's no need to do so and then get into trouble. This whole school belongs to the Shinjin Group Foundation. At that time, he asked for help so much, but in the end, he only received Shi Yian's small hand to grab him. In the most desperate moment, only her smile was shown to him, telling him that everything was okay. Things will get better. In the end, he was the one who got hurt. That day he couldn't hold on to Shi Yian when she rushed down from the high-rise building to end her life. Then even when I was helpless to listen to the whispers of my parents in a daze, in order to get justice for their beloved son, both parents would take revenge for their son. they chose to follow me and live in the middle of the square. To find justice for his only son. The more Seong thought, the angrier he became. He roared loudly, echoing throughout the neighborhood, then raised his strong fist and slammed it straight into the roof of the school he was standing on. It was in this damned place that his life turned to a completely different page that he never wanted. The loud explosion sounded like the rock in Seong's heart had been somewhat removed. The 5 floors of the school with just one punch made a terrible rumbling sound. He fell from the roof of the school to below while rage still covered his entire facial expression. After visiting the military secret, the president went to Hyun Nim's private residence and held the hand of financial savings fund tycoon Nan to comfort him. The children are all dead. Even my only daughter is dead and there's only one son left. Don't you think I'm also trying to find a way to keep the child alive? There's no end to my gratitude. Now 1 word from you. 2 words from you to rely on the president's help. As soon as Sung Chul said this place wasn't safe, he started sweating profusely. The place where everyone had just arrived a few days ago, and Sung Chul said, it seemed like Tak Se-young already knew this place or something. Da-hun turned pale with fear and looked at his father but did not see Yun-suk answer. Sung Chul rubbed his face and looked awkward. The team announced that if the whole family moved at once, the hidden location would likely be discovered. That means everyone has to separate. Yun-suk was thinking so hard that the president had to add a few more sentences. Currently, Tak Se-young is only targeting Da-hun alone, so I am planning to take Da-hun to a pre-prepared hiding place. Hearing that there was a way to save his son, the father grabbed the president's hand and agreed immediately. We will follow as long as Da-hun lives. Sung Chul held the fat man's shoulders, looked straight into his eyes and expressed that the reason I had to come here myself was because I thought he wouldn't believe me if he heard these words from someone else. Yun-suk looked like he was about to collapse, so he continued to say, if I came all the way like this, surely you would be less worried? Seeing him cry like this was enough to understand. Yun-suk grabbed the president's hand and shook it to say, thank you and all, then let his son go with him. On the highway, for more than half an hour without saying a word, Da-hun was not very close to the president anyway. After a while, he hesitated and wanted to ask, what about my parents? He was silent for a few seconds before answering, it's okay. Everything will be fine, but without explaining anything further, the boy didn't know how to ask the next question. Sung Chul's voice sounds strange. Everything will be fine, everything. He spoke with a harsh tone that sounded like hatred and a facial expression that didn't look good at all. After smashing the school, leaving behind many painful memories for her, Se-young calmly walked across the long, wide yard to go outside. Suddenly, he heard the sound of an engine and glanced over to see an army field vehicle that had just arrived covered in dust. Inside was a commander of some sort, looking at Se-young with eyes that were just right. Do you want to join this campaign? At that time, Da-hun was taken to the secret base by the president. Seeing the door that looked very suspicious, he timidly asked, where is this place? The president replied, this is a very difficult place to find. Even Tak Se-young can't find it, so it's very suitable for you to stay here for a while. Hearing the part about having to be away from his parents for a while, Da-hun wanted to protest, so he heard Sung Chul comfort him, don't worry. We will catch that kid and kill him soon. He looked at the president's face and knew he had touched something bad, but there was no time to turn back. When Sung Chul had arranged everything with Da-hun, a pig bird came to Se-young to tell him where he was. The words were so convincing that the giant listened even though he was shaking like a leaf. He said, now that I've told you Da-hun's location, please don't kill innocent people. Suddenly talking about it makes him crazy. From the beginning, it was you who attacked others. The ones who caused evil to prevail were not me but you. After showing him around, Se-young dashed through the middle of Seoul City to the location the other person had pointed out. He carried his anger and rushed out of the city as the gloomy sky was about to turn completely dark. Pak Sang-krung welcomed the president inside the base, praising him for a good job, but there was no need to go personally for things like this. Loosening his tie, Sung Chul replied, my principle is that whatever you do yourself is best. If I hadn't gone myself, Yun-suk would have given his son away so easily. Anyway, it was all over. Sang Krung's lips couldn't help but smile from ear to ear. The president was right. As soon as he walked to the control panel, he wanted to know how Jung Da-hun was doing now, but he didn't expect to hear that not long after he came here, that kid had already asked to be released. Sure enough, from inside came Da-hun's pleading voice. I just want to see my parents. Let me get out of here. He punched the solid steel door. The entire action was recorded by the camera, with Da-hun punching the door and screaming for nearly an hour. He screamed in boredom and then cried again, his hands continuously punching the door like that, but no one felt sorry for him. The old man looked like a scene from a puppet movie. Sung Chul asked the person next to him, do you think Se-young was fooled by what we arranged? If you look at all the things he has done until now, Tak Se-young does not have the impetuousness of youth. Yeon Young knows that, but as long as Jung Da-hun is here, Tak Se-young's arrival will be out of the question. The president is still very suspicious of this plan. What if that brat knows that this is just bait and he is being played? Unexpectedly, the old man next to me said, don't think this is a trap. Trap what? It's clear that Jung Da-hun is here. As long as he finds the right person, Tak Se-young won't think he's been deceived. Sung Chul's face started to turn pale. What he meant was to use Da-hun as bait, nothing more. Looking at that wrinkled old face that was darkening, Jung Da-hun was forced to stay here until everything was over and Sung Chul could not object. The radio on the table suddenly rang out. We confirm that Tak Se-young has entered the area. The old man slowly picked up the walkie-talkie and gave orders. Once Tak Se-young was inside, he immediately deployed the plan. Poor Da-hun still didn't know that he had become Tak Se-young's prey. He kicked and punched the door repeatedly, begging to be let out. I can't help but turn to cursing. Normal human ears can't hear his anger outside, but Se-young can. He walked step by step until a few hundred meters away and could clearly hear Jung Da-hun's voice, making the blood in his body boil more and more clearly. But before entering there, Se-young's eyes discovered a few ants hiding under the dense canopy of trees. Everyone was scared to death. It was just a secret, but who wanted to fight? This giant. But as long as Se-young didn't make a move, it was as if he didn't see it. He turned back to the original target. Without saying a word, he jumped high under the pale moonlight and swung his sword out with just one hand. He raised the sword parallel to his body, then used his two big, strong hands to hold the sword's handle, curling his stomach and chest. He held the thunder feather tightly in his hand and used all his strength to slam it down until his whole body was bent. The sword rushed at a speed that was difficult to see with the naked eye. The main target is the roof of the base, which is planted with countless boulders. Once the sword collided with that place, it exploded with a fierce blow that sent all the rocks flying in all directions. The soldiers who saw that scene trembled like a leaf because of all the mines they had hidden among the rocks. Now they fly up freely and explode without causing any damage to Se-young. He didn't care about that small explosion at all, only seeing his lightning rod piercing the roof of that secret facility. Jung Da-hun, you've reached your father's end. The boy clutched his head in fear as the whole base shook like there was an earthquake. As soon as the shock was over, it took its hand off its head and looked up in all directions, full of anticipation to see what was going on outside. Suddenly, the door was opened by two hands from the outside. Just looking at it was enough to know who was coming. Se-young's huge body appeared right in front of his eyes, making Da-hun just have tears streaming down his nose and saying nothing. Can you come up with a sentence? In contrast to the boy's pale, scared expression, Se-young's beast-like expression. At this moment, he looked eye to eye with Da-hun, scaring him to death and then, step by step, thundered his way inside. Just as he turned around to run away, Da-hun's face suddenly collided with the sharp tip of the sword that was sticking from the ceiling to block his retreat. There are swords in front, and monsters in the back. In general, there is no way to save. Se-young raised his hand for him to see and squeezed it tightly, growling, with just this hand of mine, the game of hide and seek ends here. Waiting for Se-young to get inside with smoke rising outside, the army began to hear orders to quickly block the entrance with the remaining explosives. They immediately exploded two giant blocks of stone outside the base, causing them to crash down and cover the door that Seong had just opened. His eyes saw, but he didn't care, he just let those rocks block his only path. Now it's just you and me left, Da-hun, let's get started. Looking at Seong's crazy face, this kid knew he definitely wouldn't die well. Sure enough, the beginning was a torture by throwing Da-hun onto the wall, then another punch in the middle of the stomach, causing him to spit out a bunch of blood and fall to the ground, pressing his body against the wall, one hand clutching his stomach. I'm full of pain. Da-hun groaned like a wounded dog. In less than 2 seconds, something strong stepped on his arm, causing pain to flood his mind. Tears and snot were running down his eyes. Da-hun screamed in misery when he realized his arm had been crushed by Seong's foot. After stomping, he withdrew his foot as if nothing had happened, looked down at the boy who was still vomiting blood, and forced him to stand up. Having no choice but to obey, Da-hun did what Seong said. Both of them did not know that the air vents of this place began to make hissing sounds and smoke suddenly crept into the space of this room. Quietly, hugging his crushed arm, trying to get up before being steady, Da-hun saw his other healthy arm being grabbed by Seong and turned 180 degrees, his whole body flying away with the force of the throw, by Seong. His eyes didn't even blink when Da-hun's body was bounced off the wall. He quickly used his left hand to grab his neck and press it hard against the wall. Just as he was planning to hit this guy a few more times, he suddenly saw his vision fading as if he were nearsighted. Blood shot straight into his face from somewhere, shocking him. The kid who was being strangled was now laughing loudly like he was going crazy. He knew he was going to die anyway, so he wanted to laugh in Seong's face or something. He raised his hand to wipe away the blood. He must give this guy double the calcium. Outside, Sung Chul was asking the old man, "What's that smoke? Don't say it's gas, or some kind of poison that you guys are making into a biological weapon." Yin Zhang doesn't think so. Normal weapons have no effect on Tak Se-young, not only because of his large body, but also because his immune system is far beyond the average of a normal person. So what's the point? Knowing that clearly, what was the point of spraying 3 gases? The old man kept talking about it for a long time before saying it wasn't poison, but if it wasn't poison, then what was it? Maybe spray mist to cool down? Well, it's a medicine. He knew this was a forbidden thing, so he raised his eyebrows and whispered to Sung Chul. Sure enough, the president's face looked like a monkey eating chili. According to the old man, we are spraying 500 kilograms of methamphetamine there. Sung Chul was trembling when he heard it. Did he know how much money 500 kilograms of that medicine costs? That amount of money is enough for this whole country to live for a year. Yin Zhang seems to be completely aware of that. The old man continued to explain, if Tak Se-young's body was beyond that of a normal person, he would only need to use the same amount of medicine as a normal person, saving him the trouble of thinking, like that. Are you convinced? For example, he slowly explained his vision even though many times more than normal people had already become confused at this point. The guys outside were discussing Se-young's vision becoming blurry, but inside he was gradually getting to grips with Da-hun. Blood was all over the wall and that guy had slid down close to the wall, coughing and crying in pain, his jaw twisted to one side, hearing sounds of agony that were truly strange. So that's enough for Se-young's girlfriend for now. He breathed out the words goodbye, then raised his right fist and threw it straight at the bastard trembling like a dog at his feet. I'll see you again in the future. Hell! The loud pop sounded in the closed room. One of Se-young's punches broke all the upper bones and pushed Da-hun's head out of his body. Just like that, the boy fell to the floor, splitting into 2 halves right in front of Se-young. He looked for a few more seconds to make sure he was completely dead before retracting his hand. Silently calling, "Dad, Mom, Shi-yin," he raised his face to the sky and chuckled with tears flowing down. I finally killed them all. He was enjoying the feeling of joy after being revenged, when suddenly he felt a strange dizziness in his body, and even his calves could not bear it and collapsed. Now Se-young discovered that there was a problem in this room because of that smoke. He began to stagger, his legs retreated, gradually moving his whole body into a circle drawn on the ground. At that moment, old man Yin Zhang roared. Right now, the system where Seong stepped on the door immediately split in half, revealing a long tube that let him fall freely below. I don't know if this thing is dozens of meters deep. It has been falling for several seconds and still can't see the bottom. He immediately used both hands to push against the sides of the wall to hold himself back. He did not expect that his hands could not punch through this material because it was covered with a slimy layer. Regardless, Seong gritted her teeth, realizing she couldn't stop and just fell straight into the waiting hole below. Down there it turned out to be another space that was solidly built, unable to hold on anywhere temporarily, so Seong just gritted her teeth and let herself fall like that. Suddenly something flashed past his sight. He looked through the glass window on the left and saw a crowd of people. But how could his eyes miss the three old men in suits? Seong didn't know the other two people, but he knew the man with half silver and half black hair. Then he angrily roared both his full name and his name, Jang Sung-chul, as soon as he set foot on the platform below. Seong slid past while his eyes were still fixed on Jang Sung-chul. He roared his name like a beast demanding its life. Being the president, even standing behind a layer of metal barrier, still felt startling. Yeon-jong spoke quickly into the walkie-talkie, started walking, and immediately saw a few soldiers up there pull out the latch of something and drop it continuously down the long pipe that Seong had slid down just now. On the outside of that thing was written the number 25, a jamming device, falling on Seong's head without causing much damage, but he saw a stream of light bound to the speaker from there, exploding exactly like a light bomb, causing his vision to blur. Absolutely. He had to use both hands to cover his ears because that device, in addition to light, also created sounds with extremely high sound waves, causing an unbearable pain in his head. Glancing at President Yeon-jong, he explained that in a closed environment, vision and hearing ability will be significantly reduced. With this thing he will be greatly hindered. Temporarily effective, Sung-chul will believe what the old man said. Another 500 kilograms of smoke will definitely make Seong's senses chaotic and create buzzing noises in his head. It is difficult to concentrate and think. Never seen Seong in a state like this. He slammed his hands on the floor trying to endure what was invading his nerves. But the people outside were determined not to let go. Sung-chul immediately raised his voice. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and kill that guy already. What are you wondering about? After prodding, Yeon-jong answered. Even if his senses were disabled, knives and guns could not kill this guy. The president knows that but doesn't mind. He just wants to kill the little brat who killed his daughter. At that moment, Park Sang-krul added from behind, Chief Yeon, stronger countries are looking at Seong and they are racing to get his power. If we can or should we withdraw? A little blood from this guy. Sung-chul did not agree and immediately shouted to stop him. What he wanted was to kill Seong immediately without any mercy. Fortunately, the old man did not agree. The failure of the last time to catch him left us with many lessons, one of which is that the type of plan that Sang-krul said would never succeed. To explain more clearly, Tak Se-young's senses will quickly get used to the current environment and once he gets out of here, we will have no way to catch him anymore. Knowing that, do you still want to do it? Park Sang-krul remained silent, unable to say a word, so everyone turned their eyes to Se-young, intending to take the final step, which was to kill him. Following the old man's command, the group of professors and doctors behind him walked over to the control table, clicked on the buttons on the tabletop, thereby causing tubes to appear on the wall around where Se-young was standing. Identical, from which a gray substance poured out, which poured down in a gurgling manner below Se-young as if it wanted to fill him up. But how familiar does it look? Yeon-jong said the president was right, it was cement. If we shot a bullet into water it wouldn't have the same strength and flight path as we want. And cement is heavier than water so the whole thing happened. Se-young's movements inside the cement will be completely disabled and because he cannot move, he will not be able to use his powers and will end up inside. Glancing over, old man Sung-chul wanted to know how long he thought it would be before Tak Se-young could return to normal activities. Actually, he didn't know. He just thought that this teenager's body seemed to be building an immune system to fight the disadvantages from the surrounding environment, gradually getting used to the gas being released. Sung-chul gritted his teeth and angrily cursed, 500 kilograms wouldn't win, but this gray old man had already calculated it all. Before Seong can regain her senses, we have to end everything here. Gradually the whole room was filled with liquid cement. Seong was so submerged in it that she had difficulty moving a finger. He felt his vision fade away, and when he opened it again, he saw a strange light shining down on him, or rather, the sky and the surrounding landscape had turned red, illuminating the strange light. Search on his person. Where is this? Looking to the left, looking to the right, the surrounding landscape is only a bunch of burning trees waiting to fight in the air as dark as blood. Suddenly, a voice rang out from behind and turned around, making Seong immediately look to see who it was, because this voice must have been very familiar. I had heard it before. In the middle of a group of half-eyes and half-mouthed mucus that were gaping like monsters was a human with an extremely tall physique. The clothes on his body were torn to shreds. His armor was empty and very many trees pierced through his body, pinning him in the slimy mess behind him. Who are you? Seong asked. Are you the person who appeared in my memory? He couldn't see the man's face clearly, because something black was holding his face tightly and spreading to his head. Looking at the things around the man, Seong really didn't understand. What is this thing that can be so terrible? A person is not a monster, not a monster. I don't know if I can do anything to help. Suddenly that person spoke again. Turn around and go. It's still too early for you to fight EREB. What is EREB? Seong has never heard of. He kept rolling his eyes as he heard the other person continue. Don't poke at your own weaknesses. Death, because only then can mountains be moved. As soon as he finished speaking, a dark shadow poured out from the strange crowd behind the man like a wave waiting to embrace Seong. He heard the last words. Who can fight with an immortal spirit, will receive the blessing of this sword. What a blessing, but a pile of black liquid hit his face like this. Seong opened his eyes in horror and saw everything dark in front of him, where there used to be only a little smoke left, proving that something just happened and he doesn't know where it went. That man kept muttering to himself even though dark fingers were reaching out and scratching all over his body. When we meet again everything will be different. The person's eyes had three pupils staring straight ahead at the place where Seong had disappeared. His sword was still stuck on the roof of the base, and the soldiers called a crane to scoop it up because they had no way to lift it out with their hands. A soldier leaned on the handle and sighed, telling me that in the news they said Tak Seong could hold this thing with just one arm. So at first I thought I could do it like him, but I didn't expect it. It's all just virtual. Standing there sighing, suddenly the sword under his hand vibrated, then the tip of the sword stuck on the roof also suddenly vibrated. The two quickly moved a little away from it to see what was going on. The sword keeps vibrating like that. Not only did it vibrate, but it also created an earthquake that threw both soldiers away. The earthquake it created from that base spread out to the surrounding area for more than 10 kilometers, then returned to its original state. There was nothing strange, only a cloud of smoke proving that the aftershock was completely real. Seong, separated from his sword lying in the cement block, suddenly opened his eyes as if he could see this place. The cement layer closest to Seong's face suddenly broke, crushing it into a pile of powder that allowed her mouth to move freely. Opening his mouth to roar fiercely, the scream made the cement around his body gradually crack, causing several people outside to hear it clearly. The whole base suddenly shook like an earthquake. The longer Seong roared, the more intensely the place shook. The sword up there also followed the owner's call and began to have other changes. It vibrated violently following Seong's call and then suddenly flew off the roof of the base before the soldiers could reach out and know what happens. A stunned person approached and discovered that behind the smoke layer was no longer the same as the situation he had heard reported before. Below, a soldier eagerly asked loudly, "Hey, what's going on and you're not answering?" It was also because of the sword, this sword, he kept stammering like that, making the commander impatient. Knowing how to keep it newsworthy, the sword has disappeared. Where it was inserted just now there is only a hole left. No one pulled it out and just disappeared. Seong's roar made the three old men so scared that they could only ask each other, while Sang Krun fell back and hit his butt on the ground in fear. Sung Chul couldn't believe he said this guy was under control. How could he still scream like that? Does that mean he's woken up or something? Yi-Jong was filled with speculation. Nothing would change because no matter how much he resisted, he couldn't escape this place. He believed so, but in less than 2 seconds, the ground in the house shook, causing everyone to shake. What's going on now? Looking around, there was no reasonable explanation. Suddenly, the ceiling right above Sung Chul's head exploded with the sound of dirt and rocks flying all over the heads of the old men. Looking at it, the president realized that it was Se-young's monster sword that had appeared floating in the middle of space in front of so many people. Why is that thing here? Yi-Jong was at a loss to understand. Then he suddenly shouted, "Everyone get out of here! Quickly get out of this place!" Before anyone could move, the sword that was hovering there suddenly changed direction, pointing the tip of the sword towards where Se-young was standing. Then without anyone exerting force, it just flew across a long path of the facility. This secret, breaking through the metal layer separating Se-young and the outside world, even the cement covering him was stabbed to pieces. This sword not only cut a line, it also repeatedly slashed the dense cement block dozens or hundreds of times, causing the cement to begin to crack long lines and then break. Yi-Jong stood next to his zip-line vehicle and shouted for the president to leave this place quickly. He would die if he was naked. Finally, the group of people jumped on the zip car and ran out of the facility right when the whole laboratory exploded with a violent sound. They turned around to look at the old man surnamed Jang and told the president to control his madness. "We all deal with that guy later, but for now I need to fish a bit." The time delay, he said, made it impossible for the researchers inside the secret base to escape in time. There was no car to get out of that place right when the laboratory exploded, crushing a series of people to death as the ceiling collapsed into pieces. "Big!" Roaring into the radio to call the squad leader, a trembling voice rang out on the other side and immediately heard Yi-Jong roar, "The plan has failed! The plan has failed! Tak Se-young has escaped." At the other end, receiving the order, he was sweating profusely. "Report back here and we will complete the preparations." The preparation, he said, was that 3 tanks and a van and a lot of manpower were waiting outside the base door. The day it opened for the political zip car to rush out, the first part of the tunnel was completely propped up for them to shoot into. The soldier was scared to death after the previous incident. Now his mind was lost and he didn't even know where he was driving, causing Sung Chul beside him to roar and go to the helicopter. How could he be so stupid? The car had not left the base very far when it exploded with a loud explosion, sending up a huge column of fire, making it clearly visible to people dozens of kilometers away. Something rushed through the trees, cutting them as sweetly as spinach. The men watched until they saw the tree was completely blown away, then realized what it was that was chasing them. They asked the soldier to step on the gas faster to escape, but the sword that Se-young launched seemed to have a premonition. It knew how to find the easiest paths to take, stab diagonally and then head towards the child. Zipped the car, crashed through the car window and crashed straight inside, killing the driver. The whole car was pushed by inertia to the right and into a nearby tree and stopped completely. That's when Se-young appeared with a few patches of skin covered in cement, his lightning rod spinning thinly several times. Then returned right next to the owner, just floating as if a magnetic field was holding it without Se-young even having to look at it. His eyes were now only staring at the guys falling from the car. First, the old president's half-silver, half-black head was both angry that he had done this and still couldn't escape this orphan dog. However, Sung Chul's anger immediately decreased when he saw the lightning sword floating next to Se-young without him even having to hold it, while the owner was exhaling a few puffs of smoke ready to explode. The old president's family is right in front of him at any time. He looked at the old man Yi-Jong who had just been shaken up in pain. When he regained consciousness, he saw Se-young appear next to him. Sung Chul didn't mind, he bowed his head and cursed the bastard, then looked up and cursed him in the face. "You bring my daughter here." Speaking so well, Se-young kept staring at him and then asked back, "So who brought my parents back?" When he said that, the lightning sword was already hovering above the old president's head. With the flick of his hand, the tip of the sword thundered down right onto the top of his head. It seems like Se-young is planning to gift him the same way as her daughter or something. But no, the sword stabbed into the president's upper back, causing Sung Chul to spit out a pool of fresh blood. Before Seong's eyes full of contempt, he collapsed without falling because the sword was still stuck in his body. At the other end of the zip car was a figure in a suit who had just climbed out of there. With a pistol in his hand, Snag Krun continued firing at Seong, letting the bullets hit his body and scatter like a piece of trash. Playing, raised his hand again very simply, Sung Chul's blood-stained sword shot out of his body. Following Seong's wave of his hand, it flew towards the minister, cutting off his head in just a moment. Lightning Yu's blade was now stained with the blood of both people, leaving two bodies lying kneeling on the ground. Seong looked at his enemy and then at the zip car, immediately knowing how the old man had escaped. That's fine, it doesn't matter. Now looking at the fallen body of the president, he clasped his hands and said, "Come on, now it's your turn." In the greenhouse, it wasn't even dawn yet and people were already arguing inside. There was no way the president would be missing at this time. While everyone was getting excited right now, he had disappeared. Everyone was arguing and suddenly heard the door open. The president's secretary came in to report, "Jang Sung Chul has now been confirmed to have died while on duty." None of them felt sorry for him, but only felt frustrated because they had only been in office for a few days, so how could they run for office again? Everyone in the meeting room was asking questions back and forth, but there was no solution. A few minutes later the door opened. An old figure appeared walking in behind the secretary who was standing with her face down in a corner. He spoke in a loud voice. "Why are you so panicked? Isn't it because I'm here?" Star? Everyone in the greenhouse glanced at the source of that voice, suddenly feeling less worried. That's right, there was still the former leader of the ruling party here. A member of the council has been chosen as president 8 times. The person who truly holds the power of this country is Jang Jong-hoo, Jang Sung Chul's father. He was old but walked steadily past the secretary, telling him to hold a press conference later. Now, according to the law, the prime minister will take charge of the country, right? The prime minister was called out by name but kept stopping, meaning that he should have been in command. Standing in front of all the politicians of the Blue House, Jong-hoo said that all of this happened because my son Sung Chul did not listen to the orders I gave him. So you should not do these things. Stupid thing, just follow my orders and you'll be fine. There was not a single trace of mercy in those eyes, which made everyone in the greenhouse feel extremely secure. They immediately stood up solemnly and shouted in unison, "Yes, sir." Outside the outskirts of the secret base, a small figure dressed in black with silver hair appeared, whispering in a foreign accent. She saw the entire scene where Seong attacked the politicians through binoculars. Realized that the situation seemed even more tense than what I saw in those videos. From the other side called, "Julia, everyone is moving in your direction now." About 3 minutes later, she arrived, lowered her binoculars. Julia replied, "No need, go back, otherwise everyone will die." Before the other end of the line was about to refute anything further, Julia said, "Andre, the problem is not whether this kid is strong or not, but that he is not holding the sword that he can fly on his own. Whatever he wants." Yes. Julia stared at Seong without blinking. It was the first time she saw something like this happen in her life as a Russian spy. It was 100% impossible for normal people to do it. The mountains and forests were soon filled with noisy sounds of zip trucks along with Seong being mobilized one by one to drag them to the place where Seong had just killed the old men. People were swarming around him like ants on the street, plus the helicopter was clattering above, clearly trying to attack. He gritted his teeth and looked around warningly. "I told you, I will kill everyone in your family. I also know that your father, Jang Jong-hoo, is actually the one who bleached you. Everything is behind, right?" Knowing that Sung Chul was dead and couldn't answer anymore, but he didn't care, lowering his center of gravity, Seong jumped onto the helicopter flapping its wings above, reaching up to grab the handle of the helicopter. While the lightning sword was floating next to him. He just grabbed it and swung himself while the plane tilted to one side due to his terrible strength. Jumping up and pushing himself to the same level as the pilot, he didn't know what to do, but he was also extremely confused below. The infantry was ordered to temporarily stop firing to see what the situation was like. As soon as the co-pilot saw Tak Se-young, he immediately parachuted out of that place, leaving the main pilot and Se-young to pretend to have known each other from the beginning. "Hello, may I ask where you want me to escort you?" He glanced at that person and said, "Go to the greenhouse," making the pilot sweat, not allowing them to negotiate or calm down for a second. Se-young just wanted to go immediately. Knowing he only had 2 seconds to think, the pilot finally controlled the plane out of the forest, taking Se-young with him towards the capital. The radio up there was passed down to the infantry, causing them to panic and immediately inform the squad leader that the plane was going straight to Seoul. So the whole crowd was in an uproar, shouting at the communications team to quickly send the news to the capital's Ministry of National Defense. No, tell the entire Air Defense Brigade. All possible defenses were launched before the plane brought Se-young into Seoul's territory. He was still hanging on the side of the plane, ordering him to go south, following the Han River. Looking at the lightning sword floating behind him, he only dared to nod slightly and finally told Se-young that we better keep going this way. Because the area around the capital was guarded by the Air Force Brigade, if even a fly entered the airspace within a few seconds they would know immediately. Not to mention this helicopter must have been reported towards the capital as soon as we left. They would have opened fire on us anyway. Going that direction would have been tantamount to suicide. He begged in a bad voice. "I heard that you were not affected by bombs or bullets, but if you fall from this height, you probably won't survive." Seeing that Se-young didn't speak, the pilot became even more panicked. "I'm telling the truth, on the Han River it looks like there's nothing, but there's actually a lot of things. They already know where we are going, and in the inner city area, if you fly with a strange object that is not allowed within 3 kilometers, you will definitely be detected by radar." He looked at Se-young pleadingly that he would understand. He also looked back at the pilot as if he understood, then finally decided to go to the Han River, making him so angry that he wanted to cry. "Oh my god, even saying that doesn't make sense anymore. This guy has supernatural powers, but what about me?" The capital's defense command received news that Tak Se-young was coming to Seoul by helicopter and immediately sprang into action. Having just crossed the Han River, the helicopter lurched to avoid several extremely painful bullets from below as the air defense unit continuously fired at it. Se-young looked at the spot positioned right on both sides of the riverbank. Countless machine guns had been installed. Firing bullets was not effective. They would also use airstrikes. The pilot screamed loudly, "Damn, save me," but Se-young didn't even blink an eye. He lightly waved his hand, and the lightning sword from the back of the plane pinched the artillery shell in half. Into 2, causing them to crash before reaching the helicopter. Right before the eyes of a group of men with decades of experience in military defense, the pilot glanced to the left and saw a piece of fabric flying past his face. He glanced to the right and saw the same thing. Now he realized that the lightning sword was flying at extremely fast speed, forming a white ring to protect the helicopter with Se-young inside. He swears he has never seen a Hollywood movie with a better scene than that. Like this again. For a moment, he was stunned until Se-young put his hand on the helicopter's glass and flicked it to the left, telling him to quickly go in the direction she was going. There was no way. He immediately changed direction in his direction. "Take along the anti-aircraft bulletproof ball and move towards the greenhouse." It turned out that Se-young said to keep going this way because he was prepared. That's why the capital's Air Defense Command went crazy. What if they only had a helicopter and couldn't sell it? "Whatever you use, take it down for me." That night, the sky of Seoul lit up with bullets from everywhere. No matter where the helicopter flew, they continued to fire bullets like falling rain, causing Se-young to start going crazy. He roared, "Don't get in my way," then commanded the lightning to attack the places where machine guns were placed. Every place it passed left a rumbling sound and the equipment in that place turned off. After a while, the sword returned to its owner, now bleeding 3 times in the moonlight. After Se-young and the 2 left, there was the sound of coughing in the places where machine guns were placed after waking up. Because he only focused on dealing with the machine guns, the people around him were only punished. Contagious but not life-threatening. However, who doesn't feel trembling when they just escaped death? Turning back, I saw the lightning sword hovering majestically behind me, suddenly flying away the same way it came. The sword swung back to the helicopter where Seong was clinging to him, hovering next to him. Seong's eyes rolled back, looking clearly to see if there was still a machine gun aimed at him. The pilot continued to take him straight towards the greenhouse, leaving a city of Seoul full of smoke columns rising suspiciously. Suddenly, trembling in a small voice as if talking to himself. This amount of damage is too much. In the government office, old man Jong-hoo walked back and forth endlessly, placing his hands on the presidential desk. He blamed his son for being truly stupid, after putting him in the position he always wanted. In the end still left the whole world to his old father. Holding his tired face, he suddenly heard a knock on the door from outside. The secretary came in to report that he had discovered Tak Se-young heading this way. He needed to evacuate immediately. Pondering for a few seconds, Jong-hoo sighed and agreed. Before that, he looked up at the image of two phoenixes mounted on the wall of the government room as if contemplating something very bad. The helicopter pilot once again had to risk his life as countless streams of bullets crackled from below. This time they played tank bullets. Pinching in the air, grazing a few parts of the helicopter, immediately causing it to be more or less scratched. Se-young gritted his teeth in frustration. The helicopter would crash soon this way, so he once again pointed. He commanded his lightning sword to pass through the machine gun tanks, killing them all at once. Then he used his big, strong hand to grip the helicopter's glass door, making the pilot panic. He threw away the entangled piece of metal. Right before the helicopter exploded, he grabbed the pilot, ignored him wearing a seatbelt, and dragged him out, scaring him to death. Now even if the wind blows and his mouth dries up, he has to open it and scream. Se-young ignored it, screaming as much as he wanted. He just aimed at the greenhouse that was no longer far away from him in front of him. Using the helicopter as a springboard, he jumped into the air, ignoring the helicopter falling down. Across the street, and I carried the soldier who was screaming with all the strength of his lungs. Glancing to the right, the lightning feather followed the direction he pointed, jumping forward a bit in front of its owner. Se-young used that as momentum, jumped up like a Spider-Man, then rushed down again at extremely fast speed. Quickly, he bumped into a few more places to gain momentum to increase his speed towards the greenhouse, which was only a few kilometers away. Just keep following this momentum and after a few minutes he will arrive. But while surfing in the night sky, Se-young looked down at the house below, where many passers-by were injured by the helicopter that crashed and exploded, and suddenly felt a sense of difficulty. He refused to get inside but immediately turned away, taking the pilot with him, once again gaining momentum on the lightning rod and swinging his body forward. Soon, the greenhouse's lawn area appeared in sight. The lightning rod was still floating in the sky waiting for its owner to land on the ground. His hand still did not leave the pilot for a bit, nor did he let go. I didn't bother to turn back to see if he was dead or not. Well, without having to check, under Se-young's armpit I could still hear the moaning and I knew he was alive and well. Soon, behind him was a team of infantry and armed men rushing towards him as ordered. Tak Se-young had approached the greenhouse. Everyone unleashed all their firepower to stop this guy. The tank quickly increased. Quickly pointed the gun at him, determined not to let this government suffer any more humiliation. Behind and in front, everyone had weapons pointed at him, but Se-young still walked calmly. He set his foot on the stone steps outside the greenhouse, loudly declaring, "If anyone wants to die, just try shooting. Let's see." His face looked threatening as if he had been plucked from hell, but the guards here had no choice. Finally, one of them roared and fired, causing everyone present to simultaneously aim at Se-young that has been clicking continuously. The Capital Defense Command very quickly received the news and responded with a very dirty slap on the table. A certain man shouted with spittle, "The Air Force's bombing just now damaged hundreds of civilians. If things are like this, what kind of trust will people have in our government? We are also at the bottom of society." "Then what?" one man roared in response. "Do you want to send a whole bomb into the heart of Seoul? Are you crazy? So you tell me what to do now. Is it possible that in this situation, the entire government must be frozen because of a terrorist brat?" Jo Myung-hak, Minister of Security roared in a survival style. But is he planning to blow up this greenhouse to show the world that our government is incompetent? On the opposite side, Min Hung-teik, Minister of Politburo, was also roaring back in response. But he thought that if the whole country poured firepower into killing a brat in the center of the city, he wouldn't look incompetent. Or what? He was so right, I couldn't argue, so Myung-hak had to lean on his chair with a headache that was about to die. A man with square-cut hair sitting next to him suddenly spoke up. We could try talking to Tak Se-young. But after just suggesting it, Myung-hak cursed him far and wide in the face. Look at the situation here and then tell Secretary Young. Do you think this case can still be negotiated? On this point, Hung-teik agreed. He roared, Mr. Young. Do you think now is the time for diplomacy or what? If you're about to die, why are you still negotiating? Jung Jin-suk, Senior Secretary of the Ministry of Public Relations, was suddenly cursed from both sides, so he was silent for a few seconds before speaking faintly. It doesn't matter if we can negotiate with him or not. The important thing is that someone must step forward to arrange this case. Even if it doesn't succeed, it will still buy some time to evacuate the people. He criticized bluntly, you guys only worry about whether to explode or not to explode, so what do you think about the safety of the people of this city of Seoul? That's right, these two men couldn't argue, so each man had a seat, so he leaned in and remained silent in response to Jin-suk's question. After a moment of silence, Young-hoo sat at the head of the table and called out to him, present your opinion, see how it goes and then we'll decide. News that day was flooded on all channels about Tak Se-young currently attacking the greenhouse, but since then there has been no sign of him coming out. The army has now declared a state of emergency and blockade. No entry or exit from inside. Currently, the number of casualties caused by Tak Se-young's attack has reached hundreds of people, followed by the countless crimes of Tak Se-young that they have recently received so much that it gives them a headache. The other hand had to raise the remote to turn it off and then put it down. Bose crawled on the soft sofa and thought, Se-young, I haven't seen him in just a few days and he's already become a terrorist. While sighing, she suddenly heard her doorbell ringing, so she was alert and asked who it was. Outside, a man's voice was heard asking if it was Nurse Kim Bose of Haewon School Hospital. As soon as she heard her say it was right, there was an extremely rough sound of the doorknob being turned outside, combined with a rumbling noise as if trying to break the lock, causing Bose to jump, his face so confused that he did not dare to move. Finally, her door was opened from the outside, but a gap remained due to the iron chain connected to the door frame, from which half of a man's face with an indecent smile appeared. Please. Hello, I'm a police officer. Why don't you open the door to let me in? There's something to say about Tak Se-young? Kim Bose was sweating. She had sensed danger somewhere around here. Behind her was a policeman laughing and adding, please open this lock. How about me? Kim Bose saw something wrong and asked with a trembling voice, you guys aren't the police, right? Just guessing that, the eyes of these two men immediately changed. They seemed to go crazy, using force to yank her door open while cursing, you motherfucker, open the door quickly. The other man used both hands to reach inside, showing his dirty face and cursing at Kim Bose. Why don't you open the door? If you don't open the door, fuck me with you? Just finished speaking, he was the first to die when something pinched him and blood splattered. The nurse took one look and immediately knew that person had been killed, and from outside the hallway, the two men pretending to be police officers quickly pulled out guns to retaliate. The opponent was a guy using a silencer, and with just 2 clicks, he easily defeated the other 2 guys. Bose is a nurse who specializes in saving people. The first time he saw people killing each other right in front of his house, he froze, not knowing what to do. The clogged foot stepped forward, then a female voice said, I didn't realize, you're a bit slow. Shi Yian smiled and looked at the nurse, but she didn't know the girl. The poor pilot groaned on the floor for a long time like a rabid dog, then suddenly sat up and howled so loudly that his pilot's helmet flew off his head and rolled on the floor. Han Ji-hun, captain of the Air Force, raised his hand to wipe large streams of sweat from his face, thinking to himself that it was just a dream, but unexpectedly turned around to see the creator of that nightmare sitting above. The stairs are not far from me. Duong looked at himself. Suddenly Jihyun saw me and I immediately woke up. This was Tak Se-young and nothing else. He turned away, pinching his face in repentance. Why did I wake up at this moment? Am I crazy or something? I should have pretended to faint and never wake up. At this moment, he suddenly noticed that this place was not some corner of the city that he knew. A group of people dressed in political uniforms were helping each other stand up, each with a look of fear on their faces. Looking back and forth a bit, Jihyun was stunned. Don't tell me he was in a greenhouse. It's true that he's in the greenhouse, but the greenhouse is smoking. Looking out from here, you can see that Se-young has just bombed this place, and immediately feels like he's dead. I was stunned for a moment, but Se-young's voice was heard behind me. You're awake. He said it was him and no one else. Turning around, Jihyun immediately heard Se-young snorting and saying, I have something to do with you. Do this. On the outskirts of the greenhouse, where a large number of soldiers were lining up and standing in combat tents, a suspicious voice rang out, saying he was from the Air Force. They set up a few tables, questioned the young man in front of them. Why did the Air Force appear in the greenhouse? A person standing next to him bent down to report the situation to the boss, then saw him surprised and asked, What? What, is that a helicopter pilot? Han Jihyun knew that something bad would happen to him, so he didn't say anything else until the middle-aged man asked, Han Jihyun, why did you leave with the hostage taker? He honestly replied, because he asked me to take him away, and continued to listen to the other man question, were you the one who flew on that helicopter with Tak Se-young? The moment of confession came. He closed his eyes and shouted, that's right. I should be charged as well, as a soldier and captain. While the whole country is fighting against terrorists, he accompanies criminals. Just as he was about to explain further, two people came out from within the army, each with one hand pushing Han Jihyun down and hitting his face on the floor, treating him as a military criminal. From above, the middle-aged man continued to judge, Captain Han Jihyun, because of your treasonous actions, you will be detained for investigation by a military court and criminal prosecution of your crimes. Me. Gently shaking his head, he said to take Han Jihyun away. Although he knew he was unjust, he did not dare to speak up because in reality, this was all Han Jihyun's calculation. When he was taken out of the tent to get on the bus to return to the prison, he felt extremely relieved. Soldiers are forced to live and die according to the orders of their superiors. No one will sympathize or forgive. For people disobeying orders, sitting on the back of a van, he still knew that he would soon face a military court and be treated like a prisoner, but he still breathed a sigh of relief. After all, it was 100% better. Times when I had to deal with a serial killer with mental problems. Unfortunately for him, he was already in the army van leading him away, but that psychopath still chased after him. He soared high and jumped with his 100-kilogram body onto the front of the van, causing it to momentarily turn upside down. Go up! A few soldiers from inside rushed forward, losing momentum, while Han Jihyun was thrown out of the van. While he was saying hello, he suddenly saw a streak of light passing by and carrying him. Once again, Se-young held the Air Force captain under his armpit, making Ji-hun's face look like he was constipated. No matter how you looked, you could see Se-young's grim expression surrounded by soldiers, surprised to realize when did he burst into the command post. Some guy wearing glasses jumped out and screamed, "What are you guys doing? Shoot that guy." They immediately formed a siege, pointing their guns at Se-young. Once he moved, they would kill him immediately. But Se-young didn't do anything, glanced down at Han Ji-hun under his armpit, whispered something that made him have an extremely unsightly expression, and asked again, "What are you talking to me about?" Huh? He let the soldier down, then just walked out of the place he was standing, as if he had never appeared here. The whole crowd slowly looked at Se-young's flight path, speechless. Only Han Ji-hun was mumbling in pain. Why did he have everything planned and yet he appeared like that? So the pilot faced the middle-aged uncle from earlier who angrily banged on the table and stood up to yell, "Captain Han and Tak Se-young had just broken into our command base because that bastard was looking for him. It's you, but you say you're not treason. Now, what else is there to cry with sadness?" Han Ji-hun muttered in response, with a trembling voice, because I was told by him that he must convey a message, word by word, to you. Turning his face up to the sky, he let out a torrent of words. This was one of the conditions of my future negotiations. If anyone puts a hand on Han Ji-hun, I will not forgive you. The senior man sighed tiredly again. That said, no one dares to touch Han Ji-hun, no matter how angry he is and whether he is charged with treason or not. No one dares to touch him again. The pilot was also speechless, crying and repeating that it was his message. Green beans. Why did it have to be me who said it? Seong stood on the roof of the greenhouse with his lightning rod looking out at the city in the dark. The few dozen meters around the greenhouse were surprisingly quiet at this time. When the three men in suits walked down, there was not a single person. The wind. The first person is Senior Secretary of the Politburo Min Yun-tak, followed by Head of the Ministry of National Security Jo Myung-hak, and this king is Jung Jin-suk, Senior Secretary of the Ministry of Public Relations. Having just stepped off the long limo, facing the only person who had the right to stand in front of the greenhouse at this time, it was the unlucky Han Ji-hun who had to act as a eunuch for Seong to lead everyone inside. Even though the greenhouse is very familiar, when the three men entered inside, everyone was in a foul mood because Tak Seong was sitting right in the presidential chair like his own house, facing his father. Jung Jin-suk promoted his role as a senior secretary of the Ministry of Public Relations, complimenting Han Ji-hun standing next to him as a relative of Mr. Seong must be very happy. Happy that the father said, if you like, you can be happy alone. How can you say that in front of a terrorist? In order to quickly finish his work and get out of here, Jin-suk raised his hand to his chest and introduced himself as a senior secretary, but before he could finish speaking, he heard Seong's loud voice. I have two demands. The first is that everyone in Seoul must leave this city. There are no exceptions. And secondly, all the heads of agencies and departments must gather here for me to meet. What is it, Grandpa? Jin-suk was stunned. Later, this guy asked to meet with the leaders, but wasn't President Yoon Sang-chul already in trouble? Suddenly, the image of Yoon-hoo appeared in his head. Could it be that this guy knew that the old man was the father of the former president? Regardless of what the politicians think, Seong spoke, you have until tomorrow night to complete what I said. If not, then you'll know by then. The limo brought the three failed negotiators back with endless cursing. That guy is really crazy, his request is completely unreasonable. Yun-tak, who couldn't say a word, now covered his face and sat in the car cursing. While Jin-suk did not dare to say a word, he only looked out at the city. If we had to mobilize the entire army in this city outside, it would certainly take a lot of time, but is it too much to say that we have to evacuate all 10 million people of Seoul City in about 18 hours? The other two men knew that what Jin-suk said was true, so they simultaneously cursed. What a miserable son of a bitch. With two people left in the greenhouse, Ji-hun tried to ask, is there any specific reason why you want everyone to leave Seoul? He was silent for a moment then spoke up, because Seoul will become a battlefield. I don't want innocent people to get caught up in this and die. Suddenly Ji-hun felt speechless and didn't know what to say, so the two remained silent. Meanwhile, the three men who went to negotiate returned to the office, where a large crowd of people were waiting for them. Just seeing his face, the Prime Minister stood up and enthusiastically asked, what's wrong? What did Tak Se-young say? Lee Jun-hyopi is currently in office on behalf of the president temporarily, but he did not negotiate, so now he wants to know what Se-young asked for. It must have been something terrible, but all three men remained silent and could not say a word. Jong-hoo's experienced eyes looked right through and he knew that soon they would quarrel. After hearing Se-young's request, everyone immediately covered their faces and scratched their heads in pain. Most of their hair had fallen out but they were still struggling because the anger was unbearable. Even Jong-hoo could see that the situation was extremely tense, sitting silently listening to the men cursing back and forth. Yun-tak wants the current government to move to a city closest to Seoul to continue its mission, but staying here is like waiting for that guy to come and kill him. But Jin-suk did not agree. He roared, if you do that then the whole country will know we have to hide. The other side immediately objected, so what do you mean? don't you want to evacuate 10 million people within 10 hours? It's impossible, but Jin-suk really wants to do it. At least we have to show people what we're doing. Who knows what that crazy guy will do? Moving his pants, a man laughed in Jin-suk's face. Do you know how much money each evacuation costs? $100,000, $1 million or $2 million, do you know? But why would the whole of Seoul panic over that? Jin-suk was scolded so harshly, he was so angry that he couldn't stand it, but the other side wouldn't let go. Can he take responsibility? He thought he could settle things single-handedly, arguing back and forth with no solution, and in the end everything fell silent, leaving Jong-hoo to make the decision. That was also when the group of people broke into the apartment complex, where Kim Bo-seo first met Shi Yeon, the little girl peeking behind the door, smiling and saying, "You recognize it, right?" Although it's a bit slow. Kim Bo-seo kept glaring and then finally asked, "Who are you?" Gently point the gun at the door chain. Shi Yeon smiled and introduced himself, then shot the thing in half, introducing himself as a close friend of that guy. Looking at the chain jingling on the floor, Kim Bo-seo immediately knew that this girl was a professional, so all she had to do was call, "Sister," and she would cower in fear. Shi Yeon pretended not to see the nurse's worry, smiled and asked, "How did you realize that these guys weren't the police?" "These guys really came to kidnap you. They came from Aegis Security. Aegis has only ever seen me on TV but has come here to kidnap me." Bo-seo widened his eyes and thought to himself, if that's the case then Kim Chong-soo is really screwed. Not like that. Shi Yeon didn't want to say more, just smiled and asked, "Nurse, do you need help?" To make things simpler, you and I are two people who care about Seong. Hearing that, Bo-seo seemed less scared but felt extremely shy when she held out the pistol to invite him. "Then you can come with me. Whoever dares to hold that hand, I'll say goodbye to." But in the end the nurse put on her shoes and ran after the brown-haired girl. Suddenly I saw it stop playing again just after going 2 floors, through the window in the hallway. Shi Yeon saw that below, Aegis's security guards had surrounded this apartment complex. If she went down, she would definitely meet them, so she turned around and said, "Sister, wait a minute, let me remind you, don't let yourself be kidnapped, otherwise I'll kill you." Bo-seo was startled but didn't dare say a word. From inside her chest, Shi Yeon pulled out a grenade and pulled the pin without looking, so you have to make sure that never happens. She dropped the grenade below where Aegis's security guards were rushing above. As soon as they saw a small green strange object, their entire face was blown open. No one could run in time. Smoke billowed out from that staircase, alarming the Aegis group below and on the stairs.